Available now from the Mushin Martial Culture website is the Xingyi Notebook. The Xingyi Notebook is the perfect tool to assist you to maximize your learning capability and to help you monitor your progress effectively as you navigate your path while studying Xingyi Quan and the martial arts in general. With a specifically designed framework, the notebook serves both as a concrete record of your learning as well as a guide which will orient you on your path towards mastery. The notebook features a page to catalog session information as well as to take notes during a training session, as well as a post-training reflection page which features a series of questions and metrics that will promote productive introspection and reflection on each session. Order yours today from mushinmartialculture.com. All right, in this discussion I'm going to be talking a little bit about the value and method of keeping a training diary, a training journal, and training notes in general. Some of you have probably heard me speak of this before, that one of the first times, in fact the first time I trained with my Shifu, Di Guoyong, when I arrived there, he asked me if I brought along a notebook and a pencil or a pen. And when he first asked me this on the first day, I thought it was a little bit strange because it wasn't something that a martial arts teacher had so focused on or mentioned, particularly not on the first lesson. But for him it was something that was extremely important. And he told me after that first lesson, he said, from now on, every time you come here, bring a notebook with you. And in the beginning stages of training, I thought, and of course this was due to ignorance on my behalf and inexperience, I thought this was rather strange. I thought, are we doing martial arts or are you going to give me a lecture? And well, over time I understood the method to his so-called madness that I thought it was at that time. And that it was something that I cherish and I'm very grateful that he made me do, and it's something that is ingrained in him. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Initially, when he would teach, I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge, both technically, both in terms of practical function, use, etc., and even historically and culturally. And so much so that, and it's something that you might have noticed with regards to Xingyi Quan and Bagua Zhang. Although Xingyi, let's take Xingyi for example, it seems or it looks from external appearance to be rather simple. You think it's not that complicated. But in fact, as you've seen with the details and the information and all the aspects of every single joint in the body, the alignment, the method, the energies contained, the intent, the spirit, the feeling that you're supposed to manifest, all these little bits and pieces, it's a very, very technically deep art. And this I learned, of course, as we started training. So what he would do initially, and this is something that you can do as well in terms of your own training, is when you're learning something new or when you're watching a lesson video, for example, on a specific subject, the initial part while you're listening to the instruction is to use a notebook and to jot down the key points, so the main points. This could be anything in terms of structural alignment, heights of fists, motion, what the sequence of the action is. And this is what I used to do as well. So initially when I was learning a technique, that was what I started to write down, were those key points. The key function, method, etc. of executing a specific practice, for example. And those would be seen to be the bigger or more important bits of information with regards to the action that's in question. However, those are the gross main things, and then we start getting into the smaller details. So initially, you'd start to write down these key points. And that's exactly what you should focus on in the initial stages, is these main key points. The other aspect about writing it down, you might think that you remember when the teacher tells you, or when you've listened to a lesson or you've watched a lesson, you might think, oh, no, I remember it. But you actually only remember it at that point. You'll notice that when you're not watching that and you go off to practice on your own, you don't remember all the details that were initially mentioned. And that's the value of the notebook. Not only that you take it with you to training and you can refer to it while you're practicing something, just in case you've forgotten a key point or need reminding of it, but in fact the act of writing it down forces you to not only put to memory a specific point because now you're thinking about it as you write it down. But in fact, you have to word it and explain it and write it in a way that you will understand. So it actually clarifies the instruction in your own words per se. You're now formulating the instruction as you've been told in a way that you understand it, and that when you go back and you read it, you will understand it clearly. But just that action of thinking about how to word it and write it down, that actually puts it into your memory better than just simply thinking, I remember. And then, of course, you have the value of the book. My teacher always used to say, you think you remember, your memory might be good, but your memory is never going to be better than a pen and paper. And this is true. Even people with the best memories that can remember great details about many things, the most that they can remember is exactly what you've written down. I mean, if you've recorded everything, you've recorded everything. So writing it down and keeping a record of it is really the surefire way of recording, in fact, the key points about information, even if you remember it very well. As we get older, as we practice longer, as time goes on, you might forget certain key points, and that's the other value of going back to your old training journals. So initially, this is what I would do. I would write down the key points. As soon as he's teaching me something, on day one, for example, or as soon as I'm learning something new, I'll take notes of the points that he talks about that are important, main points. And then I'll go off and practice, whether I'm practicing with him, whether I'm practicing on my own, and I'll refer to that notebook. And then the next time I'm getting some more detailed information that goes into the finer points about that specific practice, then you're adding to it. So you're adding now technical depth. You've got the main points that you've written in one session. Later on, when he goes into further detail to refine it, you start adding those things. So this might be a valuable method that those of you who are using the lesson videos to learn from. Your initial writing down will be the key points. Then you'll practice for some time. Then you come back and you watch the video again, because I try to go into deeper detail, whether it's in one video or subsequent videos. And then you can make further notes that go into further refinement. At this point, the initial key main points, you've probably already ingrained or understand or remember to a certain point. So now we're talking about refinement, about polishing. So then you will continue to write down deeper information as time goes on. And the nice thing about this is I've got numerous journals that I've kept over the years of training. And there might be Zhang, for example, or the first mother palm information in Bagua Zhang in one book. And many months later, there might be a subsequent bit of information that was valuable in a subsequent book. So I would write it in that one. So now you can see you have a bit of a problem here, because you've got information on one subject in one book, and you've got information on that same subject, albeit different, in a later book. So I and my teacher also started doing this after the invention of computers, was I then take what I've written in my manuals, in my journals, in my notebooks, and I type them out into a bigger Word document, for example, on the computer. And in that way, you can always keep things in one section. Now you're rewriting it again. So you've written it down in a book, you've already put it in memory, and now you're going into a computer to re-record it in a more organized manner, because you can keep all the Zhuan information in one section. Even from subsequent training sessions, you go back to this digital document and you add it in the correct section. But that act of rewriting it down again with a computer further ingrains it in your memory. So this is a process that is very valuable to help you remember. Even if it's not simply about going back and looking at the record of the book, these actions about wording things, about how to put them out in a logical manner that you understand, and then the action of actually recording it, whether it be in pencil first and then computer typing later, really commits things to your memory. So this is a wonderful way that you can remember and develop your training to a more technically deep method. It's one of the reasons why I'm able to write and explain things in certain ways more clearly, is because of the amount of thought that I've had to put into wording it over time. So that is a superficial aspect that becomes very deep, and that is the initial use of a training journal, is to record important key points and to do this subsequently as you train throughout time. But there's another functional use that you should be doing with a journal when you're training on your own as well subsequently, and that is to keep it with you. It's not just about taking a journal when you're training and learning from a lesson video or from a teacher, but even when you're training on your own, to take it. And it's not just simply about referring to the information, although there is that value. It's about when you yourself are practicing something and you run into a problem, or you run into some confusion, or you come up with a question about a specific technique. Whether it's a feeling that doesn't feel right, or a feeling that you just don't understand, whether it's a problem that you have with regards to a certain part of the technique, you write that down. So you record the aspect that you have a problem with, or you have a question with. My teacher loves it when you ask him questions, and I myself, of course, the functional reason of having interaction with you people, whether it be our hangout sessions or whether you're sending or submitting videos, is that you can ask me specific questions, you can show me some progress, and I can give you feedback. This is a very important thing, but apart from asking other people why, you should be asking yourself why. And this is, again, something that I've inherited from my teacher and his method. Writing down questions, whether it be a specific question that you want to ask a teacher, or something that you feel on that day that you don't quite understand. Why does a technique feel like this today? Maybe day one it felt very good, and 2 days later while you're doing it, it feels bad. Record that. And maybe at a later stage, again, asking yourself this question in a written format brings it to your conscious thought. And it makes you, whether you're doing it directly or indirectly, consciously or subconsciously thereafter, it brings the problem up. It takes it from here to somewhere here that your mind and yourself will start to question and think about. And doing that, whether you have the answer that you get from asking your teacher or referring back to a video, or whether it's just a matter of a process over time. Today I had X and Y feeling. Tomorrow I have X and Y feeling, which is different from day one. And as you go on over time, you can probably see how all of this evolves. It's actually it's like a time capsule, watching your progress and understanding how the development of a technique or improvement of skills occurs over time, just by going back and looking at these things. So the journal is a functional tool that you can use to record things, specifically regarding lessons and instructions and key principles. It's a functional tool that you can use as a reference point after you've recorded it while you're training. It's got a value in terms of being able to help you to commit things to memory through the action of writing it down, but it has a bigger use as well that shows you and deepens your development over time. So it's not only about recording what you're told, but recording what you feel, recording what processes you've gone through and obstacles you've got with regards to training. Writing down a question or a problem that you had in a training session, you might forget that you had that question in your head or that problem while you were training after the session. And then you'll forget to ask your teacher or send me a question, etc. In a feedback video regarding that. This is a great way to make sure that whatever problem or issue that you need addressing, you remember it as well. So it's got a functional tool in both directions, in information coming in and in presenting questions that help you to develop going out. So for me, these journals are extremely important, and in fact, the act of writing things also brings the aspect of training. It brings the aspect of developing, because you do this, for example, if you've written something in a training session or in a learning session, and then you're going home and reviewing it again, either clarifying the writing or putting it into your computer. It's bringing this aspect of training into the period that you're not in a specific training session. So it brings training into your everyday life. It takes it out of the confines of a training session and brings it into your daily life. And this is another way of actually further developing and improving your martial arts. Believe it or not, training is very important. The physical training of techniques is very important, but it shouldn't end within the training session. Actually thinking about aspects, even in mental envisioning of a technique, etc., outside of a training session, helps you to refine it. It's something that you can use your conscious mind to affect how you physically will then do something later on. It clarifies things. You might have a eureka moment at these points when you're just reviewing your writing from the day or from a previous session, or even just rewriting it and organizing it. You might have a eureka moment about a particular technique or a particular feeling or a particular problem that you had. So this should be something that I highly recommend that you gradually develop into a habit. It should just be something just like you know what you're doing in every training session and the sequence of your training program. Keeping a journal and making it a habitual process of writing, etc., is something that you should just literally treat as part of your training, routine. And you'll see that over years it reaps rewards. One of the greatest things I like to do is to actually go back and look at some of my early journals that I kept while I was training with my teacher, because really you can see well, it brings back fond memories of those specific sessions or a training day when you've had something good or bad, etc. happen. Fond memories as well, but it also shows you, and I look back at how my path has evolved and how my training has changed and how my understanding has deepened. So this is something valuable. My teacher would also always say, before you can write something for somebody else, you have to be able to write it for yourself. So in that sense, there's value to doing this, because you're actually training in a way to make your knowledge firstly clearer to yourself, but in the future, wherever your training may take you, maybe you teach somebody one day, you've got this corpus of information that's well worded over all these years that you're able to actually clearly and efficiently transmit this information, whether it's in person or even in written form. So this is the value of keeping a training journal. These are some insights into how to use it and how to do this process. I hope that all of you can start implementing aspects of this in your training, and I hope it reaps the rewards that it's reaped for me.